Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Construction CFO Podcast. Our guest today is Matt Robinson from Swain Electric. Matt, welcome.
Hello, Rishi. How are you? And welcome to everybody
Good.
out there.
So, Matt and I are going to go through a quick interview here. So, Matt, the first question I have is regarding your background and career journey.
Yeah,
So, can you walk us through your career path? What led you to become a CFO in construction?
yeah. So I guess I have to go all the way back to when I was in high school, just talking to counselors and such like that and saying, kind of talked about what I would be interested in doing. And I was led by a wise person to say, you ought to take accounting in high school. I'm not sure if they still offer accounting in high school, but they did way back then. And I took that and boy, I felt like I really resonate with this subject.
Mhm.
And so that's just where my focus was. I was going to go, get that accounting degree right after I got out of high school, which I did. Got a got an accounting degree and went and did one entire busy season in public accounting. That was enough for
Mhm.
me. I had an opportunity to go into industry. I worked for a utility company as like a staff accountant and had a great experience there for a few years. Uh, After that, I went to an insurance company as like a senior accountant. Um, and then after that, I had the opportunity to join a manufacturing and distributing company. And I joined initially as their assistant controller. But I was there for 14 years and I rose through the ranks as controller and finance director, and then as their CFO. And so um, that I spent about, like I said, 14 years there. And then it came along an opportunity to switch industries altogether as a CFO of a construction company called Swain Electric. And that's where I am today. That was 8 years ago.
Mm. Very good, very good. So, what are some of the differences between a utility company and a construction company?
The utility company was primarily focused on distributing electricity to the public, um, and they were actually starting to branch out into other kinds of utilities and trying dabbling into like internet and becoming an ISP and direct TV, if you can remember that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. But back in those days, this was like in the late 1990s, mid to late 1990s, and so. Um, and again, it was, there was some aspect of construction. We had linemen and things like that, but the main focus was really being a service provider in the community.
Hmm.
At a construction company that happens to provide electrical contracting services, this is primarily focused on the construction of electrical facilities and infrastructure, maintaining those things. Not necessarily to the general public. We focus not residences. Like we were mostly focused on at the utility company, but we're mostly focused on industrial type of customers and clients and doing big projects.
Mm. Okay. So, what was your first job in the construction industry, or is it your first job in construction industry?
Well, I guess technically, yes, my current role would be my first job in the construction industry, unless you count when I was in high school. I worked for a landscaping company and we did some landscape installations. I guess that's kind of
That counts.
construction-ish,
Hmm.
but that was more maintenance. But so anyway, so yeah, here I am, and it was a good move for me. I'm kind of a different thing to jump from maybe into a CFO role in a construction when I did, but coming from outside industry, but it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what has surprised you about
Oh,
construction?
when I came into the company, I think I was really surprised by the level of manual processes that are kind of inherent in construction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you think about it, construction contractors, they kind of usually start out like a tradesman says, you know what, I can go out and do this on my own. He may go himself. He might take a couple of friends. They,
Mm-hmm.
get together and they start a company in their trade, and there's a demand for it, and they're good at it, and people like it. But things like administration, accounting, um, those aren't the focus of the company. The focus is always on the craft. And
Mm-hmm.
so, after a while, they said, "Hey, we gotta, get QuickBooks here. Maybe I'll get my wife or my daughter or my son to come in and help out with some of the paperwork and
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they go out and hire an assistant and they get some email accounts and QuickBooks and things like that. But even with all those things, the focus is still the craft. And they can grow, really big just with their craft. And so kind of the administration kind of slips behind. So that was like, wow, there's a lot of paper checks flying around
Mm-hmm.
between us and our customers. And, uh, you know, the adage is, people are, you're foreman out in the field, they need material. So what do? They write down what they need and they take a picture of it and they email it in. Hey, someone order this for me. Little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so that was like, wow, there's a lot of just opportunity to maybe streamline some things and automate things. Another thing that I also found surprising, maybe on the beneficial side, was I find that the industry is very collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
I was desperate to learn about the construction industry and what are the nuances, what are the things I need to know as a CFO. And I found that there's a lot of opportunity to reach out. I joined an organization, CFMA, Construction Financial Management Association. We
Mm-hmm.
have a great chapter here in Arizona. And I found that, networking in that organization was really helpful. Um, I made a lot of good connections and got a lot of help, learned a lot about how to operate in the industry. I mean, to the point like, a competing, electrical contractor invited me to his office
Mm-hmm.
he showed me a software that he had that he really liked. I'm like, wow, that doesn't usually happen in other industries, but I was really pleased that we had that kind of collaboration and friendships and help, especially amongst CFOs in construction.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Maybe the estimating is competing hard,
Yeah,
you know.
yep.
Uh, how has your view of the CFO role changed since you first stepped into it?
Hmm, great question. I think a lot of uh, CFOs, or we look at it and think, this is going to be just like when I was a controller. We're going to be focused on finances and taxes and my banking relationship and the auditors and cash flow and so on. And those are very important. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the key, probably the biggest change, or my view has changed, is that the CFO really needs to be the partner of the key stakeholders in the business, trying
Mm-hmm.
to work with them, trying to use insight, provide strategy, and remove barriers or friction that are within the business. I think it's best when everyone in the organization can work together toward a common goal. But sometimes different departments or different people have different focuses, and sometimes there's a lot of kind of maybe some headbutting or obstacles that get in the way. So I found that it was really important for me as a CFO to take that opportunity to try to help build some collaboration between departments,
Mm-hmm.
um, and help people see that we do have a common goal. Case in point, back in my first role as a CFO with a manufacturing company, and we had the marketing department and the operations department, and I noticed they were really at odds with each other. They had a thing called the handoff meeting where the marketing department literally like hand it off. Here's our prototype. Go mass produce this now for us. And and it was kind of just the name of the meeting kind of indicated that there's no collaboration here. It's just here, we're handing this to you. You got to go. And we found like, boy, the operations team was frustrated. We can't even make this. How are we going to do this? It's not going to fit on the production line. Things like that. So took a look at that. We moved and changed that meeting. Why don't we move that meeting up in the process where it's the prototype's being developed? And we'll maybe call it a feasibility meeting and get some input from both sides and try to get people talking and collaborating. And that's at least in that situation, it ended up helping a lot, helping you know build some bridges and some collaboration and make things flow a lot smoother. I found that I became more of a partner with places I didn't think I would. Like the HR director and I would meet on a daily basis. There's just a lot. I find that people can talk to. I got a great HR team. They talked about to their HR director or staff about things that were bothering them, and that's where you can kind of get some intel into what are the obstacles in this business. What's causing some problems, and so by doing that, by being a partner, trying to address some things with them, seemed to be something that I didn't think I would be doing so much. Meeting with the HR director every day and
Mhm.
other department heads like that.
Yeah, I mean, CFO is also about collaboration.
Hmm.
Um, Next question for you, Matt. Who had the biggest influence on your approach to leadership and financial strategy?
Great question.
Mhm.
I had the benefit of working with a lot of great CEOs and CFOs, um, and I think I can attribute a lot of them to teaching me quite a bit. And I think one thing that maybe a couple things that I think were really helpful. One was I worked under a CFO as a controller, and the CFO uh, encouraged me to hire the best people to be around you, be around the best possible, most qualified people you can. And when you think about that, it's like, why would I want to hire someone smarter than me?
Mhm.
That's kind of intimidating, right?
Mhm.
And really that I did that. I looked for people that had a lot more skill in certain areas than I certainly did. Maybe they were younger in their careers, but I would hire them. I've hired some great financial analysts. Hired a great assistant controller who had great skills and was very focused on their career. So there's always this kind of like sense that maybe they're going to want to move, and they move on in their careers after a little while. But the benefits that came from working with really qualified people
Mhm.
were really helpful to me. Helped me. I learned a lot. I developed a lot. It was more of a partnership um, than anything. And I think the other skill that I was taught by a great CEO was to see the big picture. When you're managing finances, you got to remember you got to both look at the 30,000-foot level,
Mhm.
but you also got to be able to dig into the details. But you can't get stuck in the details. Always got to keep that eye on the goal, on the big picture and where we're headed. And so those were some great advice that I got early on to help me in my leadership.
Makes sense. Uh, I remember Mark Zuckerberg was saying, hire only those people who you can work for in an alternate universe, you know?
Yeah, so true. It really is.
So, Matt, we are on section two, cash flow and financial
Yeah,
strategy.
yeah.
What is the hardest part about managing cash flow in construction today?
I think uh, construction by itself, probably the hardest thing is you've got this long length of time between when you first outlay your cash when you recover it from your customer. That's just kind of the expectation of the industry. It's typically you go out and you start buying materials and you start on the job and you're paying your laborers every week in construction for the most part. And you really only get to, on big projects, you really only get to invoice once every 30 days. So if we started on the 1st, it's the end of the month. So 30 days have gone by and now I'm invoicing. And the
Mm-hmm.
best terms I can get are net 30. If I get, that's typically the standard. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times customers are requesting net 45 and net 60. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're either, when you think, by the time they pay, we have outlaid cash. We're either 60 or 75 or 90 days in. And then in construction, we have this other thing called retention, where they typically, usually retention is 10% of the project or the invoice. So they withhold, you're only getting paid 90%. And when you think about that, a large project can go 12 months, 18 months, 24 months before that last 10% is recovered. So it can be, so that's probably the hardest thing is just managing that cash flow. There's a long tail on that recovery sometimes of that cash.
Mm. So has that evolved in the last 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think in the last 3 to 5, I've seen, some companies being asking for more aggressive terms. General contractors, we want to get, going from 30 to 45 or 45 to 60. We see that happening. We also see some where they're dangling out incentives. Hey, we'll pay you early. We'll pay you at 30 days, but with this, pay system that we're going to adopt, and they're going to take, 2.5% of the invoice. So those are probably the things we've seen in the last few years come about. More stretch on those terms, or the option of using a automated, payment system to be able to bring those uh, payments closer.
So what are some of those payment systems that are out there to get 2.5% from somebody like you, a subcontractor to a GC?
I'm sorry. What are they?
So yeah, what are some of the names of the pay
Oh,
systems
I
that are
think
out
we have,
there?
yeah, Avid Exchange. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember all the names of them, but
Okay, okay. So
they kind of just
so
seem to have um, you know, their options. But that Avid Exchange is one that I know of, and they've approached us as a contractor too. Say, hey, maybe you can do this with your suppliers and such. But
yeah, I guess not many people like to pay a toll on the
no,
exchange of money.
no, we don't.
Yeah. So how do you approach the balance between paying subcontractors promptly and protecting your company's cash flow,
Mm.
cash position?
Yeah, yeah. I think when you look at that just financially, you're like, boy, it would tempt you to say, hey, we're just going to have to stretch everybody. If we're not going to get paid for 30 days, we're going to have to, push it back as far as we can. But I think when we do that, we're ignoring the intangibles of the relationships with the subcontractors and the suppliers, and those can weigh really heavily,
Hmm.
especially in today's market where, labor is in short supply. Subcontractors, their labor is also in short supply. There's a lot of demand out there. And so I think we really take the approach that we are just going to take the stance. We're going to pay our subcontractors and suppliers within terms. And if they offer discount terms, we'll likely pay in discount terms, pay early. Um, we just feel like it's more important to have reliable, good quality subcontractors, suppliers, material suppliers that are going to come through for you when you're in a pinch and need their help. That has a financial cost to it if you ignore it.
Hmm.
That I think would outweigh the benefit of stretching someone a couple of weeks for pay. So we like to build strong relationships where they're confident that they're going to get paid by us, and so they'll come to work for us.
Makes sense. Yeah. What's your take on pay when paid clauses? Do they actually help contractors or they create more friction?
I think as long as everyone's on the same page and owners are paying on time and we're in a good relationship, it's good. It does say that, hey, with the contract usually says, um, you know, we will pay you within 7 days of getting paid by the owner, so that can help us a lot. But then when they don't, hey, when you're late on getting paid, it's a call and they're saying, well, their excuse is, well, we haven't been paid by the owner. So I think it's really important that we, build in contingencies into that plan that's going to happen. We've really got to understand the contracts. What does pay if paid, pay when paid? What does that mean? But again, like we're talking about with what we try to do with our suppliers and our subcontractors, we try to build a strong relationship with the owner. Really kind of understand what's going to happen. What's the relationship with the owner? You try to, are they new to town? Do they have a good reputation? They've been around a while. Is it someone we trust? So we haven't experienced too much trouble with, getting stretched too hard with these pay when paid clauses. They're almost in every contract today,
Hmm.
at least big ones. So this have to be managed carefully.
Makes sense. Um, so how do you think about financial risk, whether it's tied to project delays, retainage, or bonding?
Well, I think every risk, I like to try to quantify it as best as you can. So
Hmm.
you take retainage. How do you can quantify that pretty easily. Here's the cost of the contract. Here's the retainage percentage. It's 10%. So I'm going to be out 10%. But what I have to really clarify now is, okay, well, what does the contract say? Do I get paid retainage when I'm finished, or do I have to wait until the landscapers put the gravel down and the project's 100% complete? That's a big difference between, that could be a big difference in time. And so if I understand that, okay, I'm going to get paid as soon as we're complete. We have that written into the contract. I can quantify how much that's going to cost me. It's now, a feasible number to understand. And so, but if I go into the contract with not knowing when that retainage is going to be paid, it can be pretty problematic. Bonding's pretty easy. If we come into the contract, there's a requirement for a bond. Before we sign the contract, we're already talking about the cost. We understand what that cost is. We make, sometimes we work with the customer who's, can we put this into the cost of the contract? And a lot of times it's agreed to. Project delays, boy, that is a tough one. Project delays kind of can be a two-edged sword. A lot of contracts, and we got to be real careful reading our contracts and understanding what does it say about we as the subcontractor causing a project delay, or what does it say about the owner causing a contract or project delay, or someone else? How does that all affect us? We got to understand that. We look heavily or strongly at liquidated damage clauses and try to understand that. We want to make sure, hey, we're willing to take on a risk and put out that we're going to get things done on time for the things we can control. But boy, in the last few years, especially 2021, 2022, our industry, the electrical contracting industry, we had a lot of material supply chain issues. And so, those are out of our control. So we had to make sure our contracts were reflecting like, hey, in essence, we'll be responsible for the things we can control. But if, that's, piece of this transformer you guys want, if there's an 18-week lead time on it and you want it in 10, I mean, there's not a lot we can do. So we try to build that in and understand the risk before we jump into it. So.
Hmm. So, in terms of rating these three, which one do you think is the most significant risk for, let's say, just electrical contracting in general?
Well, I think project delays are probably the biggest risk. They're the most unknown, and they can really
Hmm.
have a lot of cost on time. And again, it goes both ways. If we have to stop on a project because of a delay of the owner or a delay of another contractor, and we demobilize, and we have to remobilize, and 3 months has gone by, that's costly to us. We're hitting that learning curve again. It's really hard to quantify um, what that's going to be. So we just we got to make sure that we understand both from what our responsibility is and what our, what guarantees do we have if someone does, delays us too. Um,
Mm,
Very hard to quantify, very, very hard to know how much they would cost or if they'll happen, but you got to build it in and make sure, mitigate it as much as you can in your contract.
makes sense. This next section is on technology and automation.
Yeah.
Uh, can you walk us through the key software tools your finance and accounting team uses daily?
Okay. Yeah. When I came to Swain Electric, the company had already implemented a really good construction focused ERP system, which I'm grateful for. There are lots of good systems out there for construction companies that are especially focused on that. And I think a good ERP system is just a really important tool that any construction contractor should acquire. It helps you understand your projects, which ones are making money, which ones aren't, which ones we need to pay attention to. um, get your invoicing done on time. They can help you with the administrative aspects of your contract or of your projects as well. We also utilize a lot of other maybe add-on tools. We have a time tracking tool, which I find essential. When I got to the company, time tracking was, I called it foreman's choice. The foreman just choose whatever he wanted to do. If he liked to write things on a piece of paper or if he liked to call it in or whatever, it was a mess. But now we have a streamlined way for everyone to record their time, their team's time. Um, but doing things the other way was prone to a lot of error and things like that. It just time delays and a lot of back and forth phone calls. Same thing with regard to like order management. We've implemented a good order management system for acquiring materials and tools on projects. And it was kind of the same system as before, kind of foreman's choice. If you like to write it on scratch paper and send it in with a driver, you like to write it down on a 2x4, take a picture of it, send it in, that's what would happen. But we worked on getting a good system to help us uh, take care of those things, streamline them.
Yeah, good, good. So, which tools are indispensable and which ones do you tolerate?
Oh, which ones do we tolerate? Yeah, I think any tool that the one, maybe it's not so much that I tolerate it. Maybe it's the field, and you've got to watch out for those. We went out and acquired an order management tool system that it took about 6 months, really figure it out. But our foreman, our field personnel were tolerating it. They didn't like it. It
Mhm.
wasn't helpful. Had a lot of just issues, and so just kind of brings to the point, we sometimes we think, oh, we're going to solve everything with technology, but you really got to find things that are going to be useful and helpful, and that people will adopt, not tolerate. Because after a while, you get some feedback, and you find, oh, really, I didn't know it was that hard for you. I'm so sorry. But if they like it,
Mhm.
if they find it saving them time and helping, sometimes, one party, maybe the back office thinks, oh, this is going to be so great for us. This is going to make our life so easy. But you're making life harder for another group. That's not a good implementation of technology.
Mhm. Yeah. So, what's one technology investment that paid off and one that didn't?
Okay, yeah. Well, I think going back, that example I was just using, order management. And maybe I'll get a little bit into why it was so frustrating. But the first order management tool that we invested in, um, found out later on that the foreman were saying this tool is really hard for us to find material. The search engine essentially was terrible, and what we found out was that the tool was built by a company in the East Coast or some other region of the country, definitely not from Arizona or the West Coast. And so the guys would like get into the system and they'd be looking for something that, this is what we call it out here in Arizona. Well, they called it something else back east.
Mm.
And, that was really hard and frustrating. So, we spent, you spend a lot of time and effort trying to work through it and calling back, hey, can you guys fix this or that? But probably the biggest issue with that system was the lack of integration it had with our ERP system. And it came
Mm.
with, hey, that's coming up. We're gonna get there, guys. We're working with your ERP. We're gonna be able to integrate fully with them. But it didn't happen after a few months. And it was just the technology for the back office was like, this is supposed to be streamlined, but we're having to do a lot of manual processes to get data from one system over to the other. And so that was, so that did not pay off.
Mm.
Um, we implemented another system, a competing system, and we found a lot of benefits. Key was they used a lot of metadata in their search engine so that the parts that they were trying to find uh, were represented by every region in the North America. So it was a much better search engine. The field liked it better, and the integration with our ERP system was what we wanted. Was
Mm.
up to par, and it meant that we didn't have to do any manual exports and imports and whatnot. Um, so that our field now had timely data when they were using the system.
Um, okay, thank you. So, have you started using any AI-based tools for invoice processing, forecasting, or reconciliation? Why or why not?
Yeah. Well, we have a couple. The first one we have implemented was a contract, um, a contract reading software, if you will, analyzing software, which has been really helpful. Helped us really understand our contracts a lot better and help us find them. And then a few, let's see, it's been about a year, Rishi, we adopted Being Human,
Mhm.
an AP management AI software that has really revolutionized how we enter invoices. We've, we have really enjoyed it. It's been very helpful. It's taken away a lot of the manual processes that we did. And when we think of invoice processing, you typically think, well, it's just, key entry into your ERP system, but it goes beyond that. It's how do those things get routed? How do they get filed? How do you retrieve them later on? And so we've been able to use Being Human help us really save a lot of time, reduce errors, and been very helpful to us to manage our AP a lot better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to fully trust AI in your financial workflows?
Mm. So, that's a great question. AI it's an interesting thing. It's almost like a buzzword for sure the last
Mhm.
couple of years. It's a little bit of the Wild West, if you will. So, so I think the three things we look at with any technology are accuracy and security. They're at the forefront. And then next is how will the technology be adopted? Just because it's AI, just because it's going to save someone a lot of time, is it really the right tech for us to be using? So we always look at the cost benefit factor. Again, just because it's um, a technology and it's going to save a lot of labor or effort in some area, is it really worth it? They come with a price tag. And is that, is it, you got to look at all aspects of the cost, what am I, going to be replacing? Is it just some manual labor? Is there some important human intervention that is going to be needed, but we won't be able to do? So we have to look at making sure the technology is going to do what we want it to do, and it's really going to ultimately have a positive cost benefit relationship to us.
Yeah, it's definitely a multifaceted decision for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you could wave a magic wand and build the perfect construction finance tool, what would it do?
Oh, wonderful question. The magic wand. I think what we're always aiming for. I think, probably the WIP report. I remember thinking about, boy, what could AI do with our WIP report? And for your listeners, work in process is an important report in the construction industry where you're basically looking at all your projects. And the FASB has said, hey, you guys, you accountants have to record your revenue in a certain way, and you're going to have to figure out where you're at in your projects in order to recognize your revenue properly. And that report, what a pain it can be. Anyone that works with those can know. So, but I look at it and I think, wow, if using AI and other technologies, we could really get into a lot of predictive analytics if we get the right data. If you start looking at your project and say, wow, if you could start predicting how would weather affect the project, how would the makeup of a certain team affect a project, what about this customer, the quality of the plans that we're getting. There's a lot of factors that aren't being measured right now that can go into that actually affect a project, but how do we quantify that? And so I think really what we're looking for, what would the magic wand be? It would be, hey, we want to capture all relevant data into a tool. And we want to be able to use that to predict. We want to, predictive cash flow. We want to be able to know how things are going to come about. What's the most likely occurrence? We want it to help us with like compliance tracking, lien management, help us get our payments done timely, help us, automate requesting payments and keeping our cash flow smooth. But probably what's most important is any tool, we want it to be really intuitive and useful to all users. So we've got, in construction, you've got people in the back office that maybe, are used to using technology. Maybe they're, Excel gurus and they use the ERP every day. And then you got, project managers that are, kind of somewhat delve into those things. Then you got guys in the field that Maybe some of them, boy, you hand them an iPad and they're like, what do I do? Um, we need tools that are so easy to use and intuitive, and that provide the relevant information to those parties so that they want to just use them. It's taking all those factors in that affect projects and distributing it out amongst the masses so that they can make better decisions and keep things flowing smoothly and profitably.
There has to be a very strong magic wand.
Yeah, yeah.
So the next section we have is reporting, job costing, and ops.
Okay.
So what's the one report you pull every week without fail, and what are you scanning for?
Well, we have a couple of reports. I have a dashboard report, and I think a lot of companies have dashboard reports where, we're looking at high level cash, job level data, payroll, other cost data. But I also have another report that's more distributed a little more widely. We call it, for lack of a better word, the billing weekly report. And it's really just a list of our active jobs, and it shows where they are in terms of their cost to date, where they are on invoicing, a prediction of how far complete they are, a little bit of WIP in there, I guess you could call it. But really, what we're trying to flesh out is what jobs should we be paying attention to? What should the project managers be paying attention to? What should they be invoicing on this week? Maybe even looking at doing change orders and things like that. So, that's something that we're trying to flush out with that report is saying where we got to keep the cash coming in. We got to be invoicing on time. Remember, we got that long window from we outlay the cost and when we can retrieve it. So no one's going to pay us if we don't invoice. So that's what that report's used for.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, the long outlay, actually long delay. So
Yeah.
how do you ensure your project managers or field teams actually understand and use the financial data you give them?
Mm. You know, Simplicity is going to be the key in providing information. I learned long ago that those of us that maybe grew up in accounting, we went to school and studied it, and we got jobs, and we love spreadsheets
Hmm.
and things like that. Well, guess what? Not everybody likes looking at those things. Actually, some people don't like looking at numbers at all. It's hard for me to fathom, but it's actually most of the population. And
Hmm.
you really, so it's really important to always remember that when we're looking at data as maybe a financial professional, we may be seeing things right away. Other people aren't just going to see it like maybe you can, and uh,
Hmm.
and so really just getting to the point in reporting the data. It's you could hand someone a big long list of here's all your jobs and here's where your costs are and things like that, but you really got to point out. We do it via highlights and maybe just putting it here's a report I'm going to email to you, but in the body of the email, here's like 3 bullet points. Here's what I want you to look at. You got to recognize that your recipient, maybe it's a project manager, boy, they have a lot of other things to do besides review your report and bill their customers. They've got to worry about, hey, what the customer has like a lot of demands on me, and I've got their schedule to worry about. I've got to give them this and that job hazard analysis, and I got to get the guys, got to make sure I got guys coming tomorrow morning and things like that. So I've got a lot going on besides looking at your report. So you really got to keep it simple. And if you decide on the 2 or 3 things that you really need them to be actionable on, and put it out there and make it very, very clear.
Very good advice. How do you handle cost overruns when a job starts drifting off track? What's your process for course correction?
Yeah. So I think the process is trying to identify potential overruns early on. Um, the way to mitigate that is to take corrective action. Sometimes there's an opportunity. It's really just from the CFO seat, you might be able to see, hey, there's something going on here. Looks like we're
Mm-hmm.
heading over costs, but you may not know why. And so it's really important to just start to have those conversations early on with the people that know, project managers, and encouraging the project managers to get with foremen and what's the cause of the overrun here. Sometimes there's an opportunity to work with a customer and get a change order. Those just you got to stay on top of those. Um, you can't wait till the end. You can't kind of do it on a handshake. Let's get this in writing and let's get going on it. Let's not wait. Sometimes it's a matter of making some corrections within the team on the project, the crew on the project, and but first and foremost, let's make sure we see it and address it.
Mm. Okay. Makes sense. So, does your ERP setup support the way your team actually works, or do you feel like you work around the system?
Yeah. Our ERP has some good tools that kind of come with it for both finance and operational teams, field teams. But the canned reports a lot of times don't really get you the way you want it exactly. So yes, we do have quite a bit of workaround. Now, our ERP system, they actually promote the usage of your database in doing database queries, and I think they teach about once a year. They have a 3-day seminar on how do you query their database, and they teach you some useful tools. So from my perspective, like I've learned to query the database, and I like to look into the general ledger at times, I like my team to look into the general ledger and find, answers to things they're seeing on maybe the balance sheet or the income statement. But I don't like how the ERPs can report. So we built a database query of our general ledger, account by account. And it's just a lot easier for us to find the answers that we need. We can filter it the way we want. We can have the information at the forefront the way we want it. And so it's a workaround, but it's kind of once we built it, it's pretty easy to use.
Mm. So, the last section we have here, Matt, is on leadership, people, and the future.
Okay.
What's the most underrated skill a construction CFO needs to have, and why?
Hmm. It's probably one that we haven't mentioned yet. Unfortunately, we think the CFO is the guy that's going to do the accounting and work with the bank and the CPA and the audit and all that. But your CFO, the role is one that you deal with a lot of risk, and probably the most underrated skill is helping the organization manage and mitigate risk. Um, there's a lot of ways that the CFO can do that. First of all, is just to recognize how risky a construction project really is, and it can kind of keep you up at night if you
Hmm.
think about it. I know, owners probably think about it, but it's like translating that down to the other people that maybe don't have as big of a stake, but helping them see that, boy, this is, we have a lot of potential risks, and let's get those out there and let's talk about them and let's mitigate what we can. So, the CFO can help a lot with the contract. Not too many construction companies, of at least the small and mid-sized level, have an attorney on staff. So the CFO kind of by default really got to understand the contract. That's one way to mitigate risk. forecasting, and understanding, helping the business understand project timelines and other factors, understanding the cash aspects, the cash inflows and outflows, and forecasting those can help to mitigate risk of running out of cash or having a shortfall. And so looking at things like compliance aspects of contracts and projects and things like that, and understanding what your risks are in relation to those. Um, so anyway, so I would say being that a really good risk manager is probably an under talked about skill.
Hmm. So the CFO is the Chief Risk Officer and Chief Legal Officer as well.
Can be sometimes. Feels like that. Yeah.
Next question is, what's the biggest misconception people have about the CFO role in construction?
Usually when someone hears you're a CFO, again, it's just purely, you just do financial things. You do the budget, you do financial reporting, things like that. What they don't understand is, that the CFO, can help to, he's got to get really deep into the operations. He's got to understand the business. Um, he's got to understand the risks of the contracts, and the understanding, how maybe people from the outside don't understand how useful a CFO can be to helping project managers and project teams to be more successful on their projects by helping them to spot those times when maybe a project is going over budget, or maybe we're continuing to have a problem with this customer on projects, helping get those invoicing and cash flow running smoothly. I think that's just something that maybe we don't often get credit for. Also a CFO can be a huge help on the culture of a company. And when I think of like what can a CFO do, and I think they can bring somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit to the teams that are leading projects and helping them. How do they do that? They're giving feedback to the teams. I think everyone would like to know how they're doing. How did we do on that project? How are we doing on the project so we can make corrections or do better. I think employees inherently want to do that and be recognized for that. And I think a CFO can provide enough information down to project team level so that they can feel that pride and understand where they're doing well and where they can improve.
Yeah, it's a really strategic and deep role.
Yes.
So this is my last question to you, Matt. Looking ahead 5 years, how do you see the role of a construction CFO evolving?
Okay. Yeah. Um, I think probably one of the biggest things that we see right now is that a good CFO is going to have to leverage technologies and best practices that are emerging right now. And so,
Hmm.
how do you do that as a CFO? The CFO is going to have to learn what's useful, what's out there, what's secure, what's really gonna help us, because your competitors, they're gonna find the best practices and the technologies that are gonna help them be better and serve their customers better, and we gotta do that too. Now at the same time, I find that particularly in the construction industry, we've kind of been in a boom for quite a while. Things have been, there's been a lot of demand, but as we know, all economic cycles are cyclical, and so there's potentially going to be a downturn at some point. So I think at the same time, you can't get just too focused on the latest and greatest technology, AI, machine learning. Those things will help, but you gotta remember that you still got to be that risk manager. You still got to be that CFO that's going to be able to help the company get through tight times, implement policies and procedures and reporting to help identify um, ways to improve cash flow and ways to sustain the business through difficult times. The one of the I guess the challenges of prosperous times is we kind of can mask problems. We don't sometimes deal with them. We might have we don't keep our teams as lean as they might be, and we that's okay. We've got enough coming in. We can handle all of that. So the CFO can kind of be that objective sounding board to say, hey, let's make sure we're prepared if things maybe slow down a bit. The CFO, one of the tools the CFO can use is the forecast, and not just using that blue sky forecast, but make that rainy day forecast. The 3 to 5 year rainy day. Are we in a position that we can survive and help out? And then kind of coming back full circle, adopting tools, emerging technology, AI, machine learning that are going to help you do that part of your job. I think that's what the CFO role is going to be like, and as we continue for the next few years.
That's a great answer. Just a follow-up, Matt. What will separate top performers from the rest?
Huh. I think the CFOs that are willing to get out there and really dive in and learn new skills. This is an interesting environment
Hmm.
today. There is so much really great opportunities with regard to technology, and I think the CFOs that will really emerge at the top are the ones that are not just going to be kind of reactive and, hey, yeah, we'll adopt a proven technology, but the ones that are really forward-thinking and helping to develop technologies. And I think it really just comes down to think about the problems that you're having, the headaches that you have. I think really, I liked your question earlier, Rishi, about the magic wand.
Hmm.
Think about that magic wand and what would you like? And if you're an older CFO, maybe you've been out of school a while and it's been a long time since you've had to study. Boy, what a great opportunity to get back into that and learn about AI and its capabilities and the things that'll come about because of it. And you could be at the forefront of helping to develop uh, uh, software and tools that will help uh, your company and others around to do better.
Yeah, actually, the early adopters, if they figure out that this and choose the right technology, they can shape it too. You
Yes,
know, the late
absolutely.
adopters, they'll just have to kind of, you know, just follow the herds.
Yep.
Um, so mm, this was great talking to you, Matt. Very insightful. I really sincerely thank you for taking this time. And to everyone else listening, this is Construction CFO Podcast. And today we had our guest, Matt from Swain Electric. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Rishi. Been great talking to you.
Great talking to you.